I'm sure there are many of you listening or watching right now that have used chiropractic care. I know I have over the years, and it's been such a great option for pain relief and pain prevention. And I really wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the subject. So today I have with me Bharon Hoag. He is the former Executive Director of the Ohio State Chiropractic Association, and he's also the founder and the Executive Director of One Chiropractic, the most disruptive advocacy organization in chiropractic today. Very curious to dive into that. The organization is dedicated to challenging the profession's status quo. With over 25 years of experience, Hoag brings a unique perspective shaped by owning and managing clinics, counseling over 1,000 healthcare facilities. Through One Chiropractic, he champions practitioners' rights and public access to chiropractic care. Bharon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Well, first of all, I just want to put it out. You're not a
That is correct.
chiropractor,
Correct.
correct? So I want to put that out there right away. So how in the world did you come to how did you come to found this organization? And then why chiropractic care? Because there's so many, naturopathic practices, integrative medicine. Why that particular field?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's God. I mean, I had no real decision making in this process. It was just a series of life events. I had a child very young in life and needed to work. I was a sophomore in college when we got pregnant, and I was like, oh Lord, I need to grow up really quick and figure out what life is about. And so I took some jobs and nothing really fit. I got fired from a job from being a cocky little guy and too big for my britches. And I just answered an ad in a paper, and it said looking for an office manager in a local doctor's office. And I had no idea it was a chiropractic office. At that time, I didn't even know chiropractic existed. I'd never been to one. No one in my family had ever been to one. This is early 90s. So I went to the interview, really hit it off with the chiropractor that owned the facility, and I got hired, not knowing anything at all. And so I was really a sponge to understand what is going on there. Honestly, when I started the job and I watched them adjust, I'm like, there is no way in Hades that you're doing that to me. Like, that is just way too violent. No way. The only time I'd ever seen some of those moves was on TV, and it was not to restore health. So it was, it was very foreign to me. I didn't understand it. And so sometimes when you're in an environment and you don't understand it, but you're forced to play in it, you're more critical, but you're also more keen to learn and listen and understand to answer those questions. And that's the state I was in. And the more that I learned about the true essence of what chiropractic is, the more enlightened my mind was, and the more frustrated I was to be 19, just turning 20, and not knowing that this existed. I was an athlete in high school and had an opportunity to play in college and had a knee injury. And I'm like, man, if I was under care, could I have played? Could I have done this? And my dad had a lot of health issues. I'm like, man, if he would have been under care, could that have played out differently? So I had all these kind of frustrations, like, why in the world does nobody know this is an option? Why has it been kept so secret? And that really drove me. So in the mid to late 90s, I really just went to as many seminars as I could to really understand what chiropractic was and why did the average American not have a clue about it? Or if they did, they were like, I don't have headaches, or I don't have back pain. And, that's still to this day when I'm traveling and people ask me what I do and I say I'm in the chiropractic field, they're like, oh, well, thankfully I've never needed one. And so there's just this perception out there of what it is. And I was curious and I needed to understand. So through a series of events, I got very, very good at telling the story of chiropractic, very passionate in my conveying of it. My family got under care. I saw miraculous things with my wife at the time and my two children. And my son was adjusted at 2 hours old. He's now 24 years old. He was a two-sport athlete in college, never had a broken bone, never been vaccinated, never had any serious injuries, never had an antibiotic in his body. And he's just an unbelievable fit, well adjusted man. And it's amazing. He's actually in chiropractic school right now to become a chiropractor. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then my daughter, who's 27, is a chiropractor. So she works in my clinic now. And so I got very blessed that this became such a massive part of our life from, just growing up in our healthcare choice, and chiropractic became our method of healthcare. And then my children choosing to do that for the rest of their lives. It was pretty amazing. So yeah, I call myself the profession's biggest groupie. I've done everything you can do in this industry other than adjust. And I want the world to understand it's available, and I want them to understand why the adjustment does what it does. That's really my mission, because I think if people understood really what's happening in the adjustment, they'd be way more keen to consider it, and they'd understand why going to a chiropractor is one of the things I hear all the time as well. Once you go, you got to go forever. So, I don't want to deal with it. So, I love those types of objections, so I can explain to people it's not that you have to, it's that people that get it choose to, because they're investing in their health now so that they don't have to do it when they're old and decrepit and they can't afford it. And so, So anyway, it was a God thing. I just found it. Intellectually, it made sense to me. The more people I talked to, the more people we were able to help, the more it fueled me and fired me. And so I'm still on that mission today.
I love that, a God thing. I've definitely had a few of those in my life where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I guess we're going this direction
Right.
instead of that direction. So really love that. So we've got these misconceptions, I think, about chiropractic care. I do believe it's changing, because I think of how we all thought about it when I was a kid. I'm 63 now, and I think about, things my father would say or mother would say. And it was always like a very negative connotation about chiropractors, and usually in reference to, say, a car accident or something like that. And now it's beginning, like insurance companies are starting to come on board with some of it. I know my insurance company covers it partially and has a list of chiropractors that I can go to. But I want to lean into this understanding the adjustment. What do we need to understand in order to embrace this?
And I'm going to do my best to bring this to an understandable level, because I got 29 years of studying this now as a non-physician, and so I do my best to try to bring it to a level that everyone can understand. When people think about a chiropractor, they think about the cracks. I don't want to get cracked, right? So that's one perception, and the other one is the back. Like neck and back. They think of chiropractic for headaches. They think of chiropractic for back pain. And they always think the adjustment is two bones rubbing together, and that's where that noise comes from. And so what's funny is, if you look at the beginning of chiropractic was founded in 1895. And in Davenport, Iowa, by a guy that looked like he was straight out of Duck Dynasty. And his first adjustment restored a man's hearing. And the guy he was a janitor in his office building. He had fallen and lost his hearing right after the fall. And so D.D. Palmer was like, well, that's weird. He had hearing before the fall. He had it after. So it wasn't a birth defect. It wasn't an issue with the eardrum. I wonder what caused him to lose hearing. So he started what we now call palpation, but he started feeling around the spine, and he found a bump. And so he just did a maneuver to push that bump back in, and the hearing was restored. Now, what's funny about that is immediately he went out and started doing full-page ads saying he found the cure to deafness. And all of a sudden, all these deaf people came in, and not another person restored their hearing. So it was the only time that we're aware of in the history that an adjustment restored hearing. But what happened is all these other things started resolving. So the hearing didn't get better, but all of a sudden, some of these other chronic issues got better. So every time a patient would come in and say, well, my hearing's not any better, but this is better, he would say, I found the cure to that. And so what happened over time was we started understanding that the adjustment has very little to do with the symptom. It also has very little to do with your back. Your back just happens to be the mechanism that's used to influence information into the brain. So as simply as I can put it, what's happening when you get adjusted, your spine is so important to the overall function of your body because of stability and the information that it presents to the brain. Your brain knows one thing: stay alive. That's it. That's the only thing it knows to do. It will sacrifice parts of the body for it to stay alive. Gangrene is a neurological response where the brain is saying, there's something wrong with that. We're done with it. We're cutting off everything to that area. We're going to let it die, and we're going to protect ourselves. If you're being chased by a bear, for example, your brain will automatically say, okay, we're going to pull resources from other parts of your body. You don't need to procreate. So we're going to rob energy from your sexual organs. You don't need to sit there and do a math equation. So we're going to pull some stuff from parts of the brain. We're going to put it into the legs. We're going to put it into the vision so that you can move faster. We're going to put it into your muscles so that you can be stronger to move and navigate. And then once you're out of that fight or flight moment, then the body should restore back, and it puts that information where it needs to be, right? So that's how our body works in the most simplistic manner. Your brain absolutely controls everything. We've never done a successful brain transplant. I don't think we'll ever be able to do a successful brain transplant. It is the hub. If you break your neck, your body is done because the brain can't communicate, right? So the brain is absolutely everything. So what's happening to our bodies are there's three major forms of stress: physical, emotional, and chemical. Those are the three major modes of stress that we endure as human beings. That stress alters the brain's patterns, the way the brain will actually start dealing with things. Let me give you an example of opioids, chronic pain. That's a big topic. A lot of people are very familiar with it. The reason that you have to keep increasing the level of opioids you take is because your body and your brain will get accustomed to a certain level, and it'll start to actually counteract the drug. And so you need to put more drug in order to kind of fool the brain into believing that that pain doesn't exist anymore, right? So it's all about every drug you take is chemistry to make the brain believe something that isn't true. And so what the adjustment does is it influences the information to the brain. So along your spine, you have receptors that are constantly telling the brain where you are in space and what's happening and why you need to do things. And if I move this way, it happens faster than the speed of light. And it just tells. So everything's about communication. So if you think of a safety pin, and you have the top of the safety pin, then you have the bar that comes down the bottom of the safety pin, and then the side that comes up, right? So that's a perfect cycle of information. You have the brain, you have the nervous system, you have the body, and then the body communicating back to the brain. The brain gives or does motor output, tells the body what to do. The body does it, reports and puts the information back to the brain. The brain interprets that and then puts out another motor output. If you unhook that safety pin, now there's a disconnect between the brain and the body. So the body just keeps working with all the old information because it's no longer getting the new information. So what the adjustment does, and there's some amazing research that just came out in the last 5 years that have proven this, peer-reviewed, published in all the medical journals, that the adjustment is the most powerful thing at creating what we call neuroplasticity. There was a period of time, I know when I was growing up, we were told that brain cells die and you never get them back. So you only had so many. So you shouldn't be drinking. You shouldn't, be hitting your head. You shouldn't do all these things. Well, science has proven that's not true. Brains can restore and can be regenerative. And that's called neuroplasticity. That's the creation of new neurons transmissions and the brain's adapting to whatever damage or whatever poor information it was receiving. The adjustment actually is the most powerful thing at restoring that neuroplasticity in the brain. This is why so many people have all these positive side effects when they get adjusted. Maybe they came in for migraines or they came in for sciatica pain or whatever the case may be, but then all of a sudden their gastrointestinal stuff got better. And then all of a sudden no one told them, but they were having difficulty getting pregnant. But all of a sudden, once they started getting adjusted, they were able to get pregnant. Like we see these things every single day in our practices. And it has nothing to do with us pushing on a bone. It has to do with us sending good information back to the brain. So in our office, we teach our patients that the reason they're getting adjusted is so that their brain can better adapt to the stress that they're under. And if their brain is getting good information, it is a self-healing, self-regulating organism. It will correct itself if it's given the right information. But you look at the allopathic world, and what they do is their goal is to remove the symptom. And they're going to do that by drugging, by cutting, or doing something of that nature, which continues to confound the brain, right? The brain is now being given false information, or now it has to deal with a foreign object in the body or all this stuff. So that's why it tends to perpetuate an issue rather than actually relieving it. Most allopathic procedures will lead you to another one to some degree. And that's where we come from, where we're like, wait, we have the best healthcare system in the world. We really do. Emergency care, I would not want to be anywhere else in the world other than the United States. But when it comes to healthcare, we're the worst because we want a quick fix. People would rather pop a pill every morning than they would go to the gym. I mean, your whole podcast is about this, helping people understand health and wellness and lifestyle choices. I mean, your age, you still look like you're 24. It's insane. It's amazing. But you've made amazing healthcare choices, right? You've made decisions to put your body in its best position. That's what the adjustment does. The adjustment is like the foundation that allows everything else you do to be that much better. Because if the brain is not properly integrating that information, take your workouts when you go, whether you're doing a squat or you're doing curls or whatever it is you're doing, if your brain's not properly getting that information through those movement patterns, then it's not taking that information and allowing the muscles to work the way they should. That's where injuries come from. That's what, all that type of stuff comes from a lack of information in the brain. This is why another statistic, and sorry, I know I'm just vomiting here, but this is such a fun topic for me. Most people don't realize that there are more chiropractors on the Olympic medical team than any other specialty. And it's because they found that when these athletes at that level are getting adjusted, they are far less to be injured because their body is far more capable of taking the stress of the sport or of the injury. You look at football teams, there's a chiropractor on every single NFL football team now. And you look at the teams that, like, literally there's data on this, that religiously get adjusted, their injuries are far less than other teams. Why is that? Why is just getting adjusted keeping you from getting injured? Because your body's more, its ability to adapt to that stress, to that hit, to that pressure, to that jolt, to that lunge, whatever it is we're doing, your body can adapt to that better because it's getting that good information. So that's the power of the adjustment. It has very little to do with symptoms. It has more to do with making sure your body is optimally functioning, and everything you're doing to live a healthy life is really, you're getting the best bang for the buck because the foundation of your body is ready to take that, interpret it, and then put it out in its right place. So sorry for how long that answer was.
No,
But
it was
that
really,
makes sense.
it did make sense. It was really interesting. And that's the first time I've had somebody explain the brain connection, which makes sense to me as somebody who works out, almost daily. And I would agree with you. Injuries occur when there's kind of a disconnect, like you're just not making that connection from the brain to the muscle. And then that's when those injuries, especially, with the back, because the back will take over on certain motions where it shouldn't take over.
Correct.
So interesting. So now when someone is going to school, they're becoming a chiropractor, are they learning this? Because you're the first person to explain it to me in this regard.
So this is one of the problems with chiropractic, and I'm going to just air our dirty laundry here a little bit. Every chiropractor is amazing, and they learn this at a very fundamental level. And I'm just going to throw this in. This wasn't your question, but I want your listeners to know this. There's a misunderstanding about the education of a chiropractor as well. Some are like, oh, it's like an associate's degree. They're not a really doctor. They couldn't get into med school, so they went to chiropractic school. I've heard all those types of things. Chiropractic school, they have more education than an MD does in the core curriculum. An MD does 4,200 hours. A chiropractor does 4,700 hours. An MD has an MCAT before and an MCAT after, which are their national boards. Chiropractors have 5 national boards that they have to pass before they can actually get licensed. We have more education in physiology, in kinesiology, in examining, in pathology, where MDs, they get most, or DOs or nurse practitioners, they get most of their stuff in pharmacology, in surgical, because that's the stuff that they do. It doesn't make them better or worse. It's a fact when you look at the education. An MD will get about 127 hours in their core training on examining. Chiropractors get over 400. So when you look at a chiropractor, their education process, they have to have a bachelor's degree, and then they go for 3.5 years year round for 4,700 credit hours. And then they have to pass national boards. Then they have to pass their state board. And so they're very, very knowledgeable individuals. So every single chiropractor that is licensed has that core understanding of what I just explained. The problem that comes in is chiropractic is still very young. We're 128 years old. Or 29 years old, 129 years old. And that's not very old when you look at how old allopathic medicine has been around, right? So allopathic medicine, if you think of the days of Little House on the Prairie, they did everything, right? There was just a doctor in your town and they did everything. Over time, they have developed specialties. Now you have cardiologists. Now you have orthopedics. Now you have pediatricians. Now you have gynecology. Now you have, right? So you have specialties where they now have a basic core understanding, but they've really focused in one specific area of health because it's so diverse. There's so much information. It's very difficult to be great at everything. Well, chiropractic is starting to go that route. So there's a different techniques, there's different philosophies of why they're adjusting within chiropractic. Chiropractic has a very deep, strong philosophy and understanding. The whole self-healing, self-regulating belief system is very contrary to allopathic medicine. That's why when you were growing up that, people thought chiropractors were quacks and, they're just ambulance chasers because all they do is go to personal injury and, all these things that have happened. If I had time, I'd give you the history of how we ended up there. But the bottom line is most chiropractors have stopped speaking this depth of understanding because it's hitting an audience that is like, we don't believe you. So they just go back to the things that are easy for people to get, which is you have a bone out of place, putting pressure on a nerve, it's interfering with it, and we're going to put the bone back in place. And I hate that. It drives me insane. I don't like that we use the spine as our model, our logo. I wish we used the brain. We are way more into neurology than we are into structural and orthopedics. But for whatever reason, we've adopted the spine as our logo, our thing that we deal with. But a lot of chiropractors have, insurance has also changed that. When we got into insurance, started happening around the 80s. We got into Medicare. And then once we were in Medicare, we started getting in these other insurances. But insurances was designed for allopathic medicine. Insurance is designed to get from sick to not sick. Insurance was never intended to keep people healthy, ever. I mean, when you read your benefit design, it's not designed. It says, Medicare actually says care that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, prolong or enhance your quality of life is not covered. It just says it in the policy. So when you take a profession like ours, it's all about prevention, all about optimal performance. And then you introduce a reimbursement model that says our job's to get you from sick to not sick. There's a disconnect there, right? So over the years from the 80s, chiropractors have fallen into the insurance mindset of it's all about symptomatology. It's all about pain. It's all about, we have to diagnose an injury. We have to treat the injury until we get them to pre-existing, and then the benefit stops. So all the years of that is what's kind of muddled down why people don't talk like I'm talking now, because they've just fallen into what the world has allowed them to say. And there has been a very strong resistance from allopathic medicine to allow chiropractic to flourish for obvious reasons. I know that you deal with this. I don't want to go down a conspiracy theory road, but our healthcare system is not about health. There's a lot of money in keeping people sick. If we learned that about opioids, we're learning that about the vaccine. We're learning that about some things that decisions are not being made because it's really in the best interest of the health of the American. There's a system in place to do that. We obviously, like I said, my son's not vaccinated. My daughter only had the first round of vaccines because I didn't know any better at the time. So we're on the opposite side of that. We're the radicals, we're the zealots, we're the anti-vaxxers, whatever you want to call us. And so that's why it's hard to tell that story. So a lot of chiros don't want to be confrontational, and they're just going to say the things that people understand. But I'm on a mission. I love everyone. If you vaccinated, I think that's fantastic. I just want you to be educated, and I don't want you to get mad at me because I didn't. Right? I don't want, I believe in choice. I truly believe in body autonomy. Like, your body, your choice, period. Like, on every single level. But that also works for me too. Like, I'm not the enemy because I didn't do what you did. And so I love everyone, and I just want people to be educated. And I don't think we've done a great job of giving people all of the information they need to make a good educated choice. And this is why people either absolutely are in love with their chiropractor or they think chiropractic is a joke. Like, there's no middle ground. They either love it or they hate it. And some of that is we have bad chiros, like every specialty has bad people that give us a bad name. We do have ambulance chasers. We do have guys in the South Florida that are just really all about the diagnostic procedures and racking up the money. We do. But you get to a good run-of-the-mill chiropractor, and it's one of the most amazing experiences ever. And you have such a better connection to your body and understanding of why things are happening. My daughter, which is really cool, she does animals and pregnant women and babies. That's her specialty. So she does dogs, horses, pregnant women, and babies. And so, it's awesome to watch her as she helps a mom understand pregnancy better, understand their body and how their body was designed to work through the pregnancy experience, making sure the delivery is great, and then immediately treating both the mom and the baby. And we have so many moms that the first time they weren't under chiropractic care when they had their first child, and under the second one, they're like, this is ridiculous. Like, I had no idea pregnancy could be this amazing when my body and my brain are really connected and I'm doing the right things to allow my body to do what it was designed to do. It's awesome. It's the coolest thing on the planet. Like, what we get to do every day is really amazing.
So is your organization looking to make chiropractic care more of something that everyone taps into, not just people that go for, oh, my hip hurts, my neck hurts, my back hurts. You want to take it a little bit further, make it part of our holistic care?
Yeah. So my organization, I created One Chiropractic because our profession is new and it's small. We only have 165,000 chiropractors worldwide. Like, that's not very many.
Wow.
I have more MDs in Columbus, Ohio than we have chiropractors across the entire world. So we're a very small profession. There's only 84,000 chiropractors in the United States, right? So it's not a big profession in scale. I know everyone feels like there's a billion chiros because there's 100 of them on every corner. It
Hmm.
appears that way, but it's just not. That's just not, the numbers don't bear that out. And my organization, because we're small and because we're so diverse, like, it's very, very different. And if you've experienced this, I don't know if you've gone to multiple chiros, but every
Yeah.
chiro is different. It is not like going to an MD where you're going to get a very similar protocol. You go to one chiro, you're going to go to another one. It's a completely different experience. And so that makes it very hard for the world to understand who we are, because if you can't just say, I'm going to open up the phone book, well, not phone book, Google now, I'm aging myself. If you don't get online and put in chiropractor in my town and there's 50 of them and you just pick one, people don't do that, right? That even people that have never been say, I want a good one though. Like, it's preconceived to know that there's diversity within our profession. So my organization, which is the name of it, One Chiropractic, was designed to try to fix that. How do we organize our profession at least a little bit so that we make it easier for the world to understand who we are and then have access to us. And so we do that through advocacy. We do that through defense work. Part of it is the regulatory system is sometimes very egregious towards chiropractic because people don't understand it. So when we say things during COVID, when we were telling our patients, you need to get adjusted, it's going to help your immune system. Man, we got hammered. All the regulatory systems said you can't say that. There's no evidence to prove that. And so that's what my organization does. We support chiropractors by giving them the data, giving them the information they need so that if a regulatory body comes after them for a claim that they made, they can stand up and support it, because we do have evidence to say that the adjustment does have a causal relationship to improving your immune system, because we do know that the adjustment stimulates the prefrontal cortex. And when you stimulate the prefrontal cortex, which is the operating system of the brain, that it will increase the immune system. Just because that part of the brain is more active, it naturally increases the immune system. So we have data that supports why we want to treat children when they're born. I mean, imagine this. Just think through this physiologically. You have a child, right? Their cervical spine is thinner than my pinky, right? They're tiny. They're little things. Whether they're a 5-pound baby or a 10-pound baby, it's still, their cervical spine is very, very, very small. The brain is the very first thing that develops in a fetus, obviously, because it's what's communicating and helping the rest of the body to grow, right? It is the operating system of the body. So when you're delivering, whether it's cesarean or vaginal, they're using the head as the mechanism, the fulcrum, to birth the child, right? I mean, you're ranking, getting the shoulder out. If it's cesarean, you're pulling, it doesn't matter. You're using the head. Isn't it logical to think that there's going to be rotation in that vertebra just simply from the trauma of birth? Why wouldn't we want to evaluate that baby immediately after birth and make sure that that brain stem doesn't have any pressure against it, to allow neurologically, which is the most important time of that baby, is literally the first 2 weeks neurologically, because it's when the brain is starting to connect. It's almost like it's doing a reset. Okay, I got this. Got to make sure this. Got to make sure the lungs are where it's a predetermined data analysis that happens in that first 2 weeks. Well, if there's trauma from the delivery, which there is always trauma from the delivery, you cannot help it, then there's pressure on that brain stem. This is why we have some weird stuff like SIDS. We have weird things like colic. We have weird things like where do these things come from, and why do they vary from kid to kid? It's neurological. And so we believe that immediately after birth, it's evaluated. And we're not rotating a baby's spine. It's just pressure. I mean, it's tiny because we're not fighting scar tissue. We're not fighting muscle memory. It's very, very peaceful when we adjust a child. And we love adjusting kids because it's so much easier on the chiropractor. They're not having to get up and do anything hard either. They just lay them in the lap. Oftentimes we're laying them on the mom's stomach and we're just putting mild pressure. And but it's amazing what it does. You can watch the whole baby, their whole body just relaxes after the adjustment because that brain spinal fluid drains. It allows that information. It's like that big, okay, I can feel it. So it's amazing. So that's what my organization does, is we try to support chiropractors. We try to defend their rights, and then we try to find opportunities to open it. One of the big projects we have right now, which we're so excited, I don't care anyone's political leanings, it doesn't matter, but we have been working to get chiropractic into the military. Right now, chiropractors cannot join any branch of the military and practice as a chiropractor. They don't, there's just, I
Wow.
know it's crazy, isn't it? In today's
That
day and
is.
age, there's just no pathway. The military has not allowed a chiropractor to serve on the medical corps within the military, which means we don't, those veterans and active duty, they don't have chiropractic coverage because it's not part of the medical benefit package. And so we've been working as an organization to work on that, to educate the DoD, to educate the different branches of the military, explain to them why it's in their best interest to allow chiropractic to be an option for the most deserving of Americans. And that would obviously open access for individuals. So that's the type of work that we do.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it would seem to me like the military would be the very place that they
Right?
need this with everything that they have to do. My son served in the Navy for 5 years, and
Mm.
I could just see where that would be so
Yeah.
beneficial. And so interesting about adjusting the little ones, the babies.
Yeah.
We have 3 children, all adopted from China, and we don't know their birth history. China
Wow.
does not
Yeah.
give you,
Yeah.
it's like, here is your child. They don't give you any information whatsoever. And so you're just trying to, piece together things. And now that my kids are grown, I've had one do genetic testing to try to,
Mhm.
find some things out. But my middle child, it was interesting. One of the doctors, she was having a lot of issues, sleeping, issues with crying when there was really nothing
Mm.
wrong, like just crying, crying, crying.
Yeah.
And so took her in, and one particular doctor said she's had birth trauma. Now they're pretty sure she was a preemie based on some things they saw, and then they mentioned the birth trauma. So as you were speaking, I thought about that because she had a lot of issues,
Mhm.
everything from late walking and talking to immune system issues, a hernia that had to be
Wow.
repaired. Yeah, all kinds of things that she had done. So I was really thinking about that as you were describing that whole process and wondering if that would have been beneficial for her.
Yeah. And again, this is one thing that people, and this is, our profession doesn't do a great job of this, and I wish we would. I can't promise you that being under proper care is going to fix anything. We don't treat the symptom. All I can tell you is getting it adjusted regularly. And for us, that's once a week, because we know the brain, every 7 days, the brain will create a pattern. So if I get adjusted every single week, then I'm ahead of that learning curve, and I'm constantly making sure that my brain is always optimally running. It's always got the right information before it creates those new patterns. And so we, in our clinic, we're in all cash because, as I said, that whole problem with insurance, it's a difficult thing. So we do a subscription. And so people, once they get to the point that they can sustain just once a week, then we just auto charge their card. They come in once a week. It's a beautiful model. People feel empowered, way less expensive. I mean, for $140 a month, they're coming in 4 times, right? They get
Mm,
once a week. So it's
that's good.
very economical, and our people love it. And to your comment about that, it's so amazing when people find us. Whenever God allows people to learn what we're about and make that decision, they've obviously lived a little bit of life before that period of time. And when they talk about prior to getting adjusted and then after being adjusted, the various differences in their life and the way that they respond, like I'm a bigger guy. I'm very thick. I have big muscular legs and all of that stuff. I'm just a big guy. I don't get sick. I've been adjusted once a week for the last 29 years. And I've never had a chronic injury that brought me into chiropractic, but I supplement well because our food is so deficient, and I'm sure you talk about that constantly
Hmm.
in your stuff. Our food is so deficient in any nutrients. So I eat organic stuff and I supplement well, drink just an absolute insane amount of water. I work out and I get adjusted. And even being as big as I am, my cholesterol is great. My blood pressure is great. But you'd look at me thinking this guy is a mess. But I'm still making better lifestyle choices, but it's because of the adjustment, because all the other things I'm doing, because the brain is ready to learn. The brain is ready to hear it. It's not in a bad pattern. It's not getting bad information and making bad decisions. then I'm able to adapt to all the other junk that maybe I do in my life. I probably drink a little too much bourbon at times. I definitely will eat a little more sugar than I should at times, but it doesn't affect me the way it would affect someone else because my body is ready for it because of the other stuff that I do. And that's the most powerful thing. If you want the best foundation you can in health, and COVID, I think, finally opened up people's eyes to that idea. It's better to be healthy than it is to try to get not sick. You know what I'm saying? Like we found in COVID that COVID didn't really bother those of us that were pretty healthy. Like it really bothered those that had immunocompromised already, or they had some chronicity in their life. They were a great host to just crush all the stuff that they had already going on in their body. But those of us that were living a pretty healthy lifestyle, I haven't had a pharmaceutical product in my body in 20 years. I mean, not even an aspirin. Because I just don't need it. I mean, I have times where I have a headache or I do something, but I'll get adjusted and I'll drink water and I'll maybe take a nap and I'm able to kind of get through it. And I don't have any massive pains. And even if I do get the flu, which I get it about every 2 years, which I'm thankful for, because that, again, it makes my immune system stronger. So we don't ever want to not get sick. Sick is a good thing. Fevers are really good. It's your body doing what it's designed to do. But it lasts a day or two instead of 2 to 3 weeks. Like my body just responds so much better. And again, my kids are the best example. My son, I use him all the time. He's 6'2", 150 pounds. He just is a beast. And he just does not get sick. Like the dude is invincible. But he's been, in college, 2-sport athlete, all that fun stuff. So that's where all I want people to do and consider is if you're going to invest in yourself, find somebody in your community that, understands this general concept of chiropractic and give it a shot. I just give me a 2-week window where you're getting adjusted regularly for 2 weeks. And you tell me how you're sleeping better, how you're handling stress better, how the brain fog goes away, how you have a little bit more of a sharper vision. But it's just like going to the gym. You can't go one time and think it's a miracle drug. We've been so conditioned to believe the minute we pop that pill, everything's fine. Real health, real changes come from consistency. And when you do that consistently, it'll rock your world. You won't even realize sleep could be so good. You won't even realize that one day you're gonna be like, I haven't really had indigestion in a very long time. Like I just lived with it. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. And we've accustomed ourselves to living that way so long. And I, especially your audience that's here because they want to be healthy. Like they're here to learn, that trick. How are we going to biohack? How are we going to hack something to give ourselves a little bit more life and a little bit more longevity? I would double down on chiropractic as that foundation so that everything else you're doing is going to be that much more accelerated and you're going to gain more from it.
I'm going to go into the woods just a little bit here because
Yeah.
I think of so many things as you're speaking. And the neuroplasticity, of course, creating those new pathways. How could it help mental health, if at all?
Yeah, huge. And I don't talk on this a lot, so I'm glad you asked it because now I have permission to go this direction. But I normally don't go here because it can sometimes irritate people with the way that this is explained. First and foremost, I am in no way am I stating that anyone that deals with depression, anxiety, ADHD, autism, any of those neurodegenerative issues, I know they're real. I know the effect they have on life, and it's miserable. So I am in no way minimizing any of that. But I do want to say that we in our society now, where we've used those diagnoses as crutches for so long that it's almost like, if everybody has it, everyone has anxiety, everyone has it. If that diagnosis really would have existed when I was a kid, I would have been on Ritalin immediately, right? Just because of how that done. So now we deal with it in our office quite a bit. So again, I am not minimizing it. I am not making a joke of it. I am saying that what's happened in our society and what's happened in our healthcare system is it's just become a normal thing. Like it's an expected thing. And this is just what life is about. All of those things, the best way that I can also explain the adjustment, and this goes into this area, we have what's called sympathetic and parasympathetic. These are the systems in your body. Sympathetic is your fight or flight. That's that a car just pulled out to you and you almost hit it. And you're just like, we almost get goosebumps. You sweat. Your body is just tense. You're amped and you're like, oh my gosh, you almost have to in order to break. That's sympathetic. In high stress situations, it's sympathetic. That's your body in this fight or flight movement. Parasympathetic is when your body is in a healing, resting, and restorative. This is where sleep, and I know you've talked about sleep in your stuff. This is why sleep is so important, because that's where your body will rest and rejuvenate and prepare for the next day, right? So what we're finding right now is people are being stuck in the parasympathetic. This is where you're laying in bed, your day is over, but your brain is still going 100 miles a minute. You just can't shut it off. And you just cannot get to sleep. And then when you do sleep, you pray to God you don't wake up to pee or anything, because then your brain just, boom, it's right back just going. And it takes you another hour or two to fall back asleep, right? This is proof. That's an easy way to diagnose if you're stuck in sympathetic dominance. The adjustment, because of what it shocks the brain with the information, it's that jolt of information into the brain. It's the best thing at getting it out of, it breaks that cycle of sympathetic, that pattern, and allows you to have that restorative parasympathetic period of time where the brain can breathe and it restores information to it. So when you look at things like depression, especially anxiety, ADHD, again, and you know this as well, anxiety, ADHD is also heavy food. Heavy food. We've just, our diets are so bad. We could go on forever about that, but especially with these kids, if they're subluxated, which is what we call bone, where your spine is not in its proper position and operating properly, then the food that they're eating is going to accelerate the symptomatology, right? The sugar, the dyes, all that stuff that's in our American food. With our kids, I know it's easy. I know it's convenient. I've been there. I had kids that were in sports and running from work and going to that. And it's easier to go through McDonald's. I get it. I've been there. But we also have to understand that what we're doing, and for convenience, is putting these children in this state, which is also affecting us as well. And that, we've had parents just bawling in our office because their kid finally sat at the dinner table and had a conversation with them, rather than bouncing all over the room, right? So when you're getting adjusted and you can get the brain to get out of that sympathetic dominance and get into that parasympathetic, this is where we're seeing, especially with depression. There's a new study that just came out not too long ago that looked at depression diagnosed people in chiropractic. First of all, we got to get them off the drugs. Those drugs that people are on for depression, although I know they're life-saving to you as a depressed human, I'm not knocking it. I'm not telling you not to take it. I'm saying, but that drug is never going to get you out of a depressed state. The side effects of those drugs are so bad. That's why you can't just stop taking them. If you stop taking them, there's a high increase of suicide. So they're very powerful drugs. Yes, they seem like they're healing, but can we do something naturally where we get the brain out of that state of that hopelessness? That when we're stimulating that prefrontal cortex of the brain and you're doing it naturally, your brain will start working. It'll start naturally saying, okay, now I want more. Now I want to get out of this lethargic, this state of, I can't move. I can't do anything. There's no hope for me. There's no hope for anything else. We've all been there. We've all had moments of that, but it's getting stuck there that is the problem. And that's, again, what we're finding when we're stimulating the brain through the adjustment. Those things start clearing, and people don't need the drugs anymore, and people are feeling like they've got a hope again. These kids, with our autistic kids, man, they're the most amazing. Autistic people are the most amazing people on the planet. They just are. Their brains work in such a phenomenal way. I actually think they're a gift. They're a pain, and they don't conform to our world at all. But if you get the time to spend with them and you allow them to be who they are, it's amazing. But we have had such massive changes by properly adjusting them and controlling their diet that the nonverbal people are starting to be verbal. The people that, would trigger and scream at any loud noise, they're not having that reaction anymore. Once you're there, when you're autistic, there's permanent damage done. I don't know that you could ever get an autistic person to be 100%, like, I don't want to say normal, because I don't even know what that word means anymore, but you're not going to get them to where they're not going to have evidence of being a little different. But you can reduce the extremes, right? The extremes are what make it so difficult to deal with these children or even adults. And if you can figure out how to manage that and get the brain to start remapping, it's amazing to watch. Same thing with Alzheimer's. We've got some studies with Alzheimer's where we're restoring pathways. And their memories are coming back. Like it's phenomenal stuff. The brain is so incredible that if you give it the right stuff and you allow it to work the way it was designed, almost anything's possible. That's D.D. Palmer, the founder of chiropractic. His son BJ was the developer, but Didi was the founder. And he came up with this cause: one cause, one cure. One cause, one cure. And that one cause was we're bleeding the brain from information. That's the cause. And if we can get the brain the information, it will self-heal and self-regulate. Almost 80, I'm just throwing this number out there, but from my experience, 80 to 90% of the time, if people will get under care and we remove those other issues of the chemical stress, right? Physical, emotional, chemical, if we can manage those forms of stress, we get them adjusted and we give the brain what it needs, you can just really deal with almost 80% of anything that you come in contact with without the need of external stuff going in your body. I'm
So
sorry, I'm rambling.
oh, no, it's interesting. So do you think it would be helpful for a chiropractic practice to say have someone in nutrition, someone in stress mitigation or management? I mean,
Yeah.
we can't eliminate stress, a more holistic approach. Because I feel like, I'm always running to, okay, there's the dermatologist, there's the rheumatologist,
Yeah.
there's my nurse practitioner. I'm all over the
Yeah.
place with
Yeah.
appointments. And in my
Yeah.
head, I think, oh, how beautiful if we had a more integrated model.
Until the reimbursement model pays for health, you're just not going to have it. The problem is it gets so expensive to do that stuff naturally that because insurance doesn't cover it. So there's a very small percentage of people that value what you and I value to the level we're willing to pay what it would cost to have a center that had all of those people where we
Hmm.
could piece it all together to do it. So they exist. We have them. It's becoming more regular now when people realize their health insurance isn't really going to give them health. So they're willing to pay for it on their own HSAs and things like that, where they can put their money where they want it to be. Now it is becoming a bit more accessible. But I think to see it where it's as accessible as anybody wants it to be until our reimbursement model. And this is where, and again, I don't want to get political but I'm excited that RFK is being considered the head of HHS just because of the work that he's done to understand health. And he understands the sickness model. He understands how pharma has bought and paid for their ability to market and to do everything that's been done to really convey a false truth about health in the United States. And we're really the only country in the world. I mean, I think we have like 6% of the world's population, but we consume 80% of the world's drugs. Like that tells you something, right? And that's not my statistic. That's through the government. And why I'm excited right now is if Trump is being truthful that he wants his legacy to have a healthy America, if RFK is truthful and saying that he wants to eradicate the chronic health crisis in America, it's very exciting for me because finally you have someone with the power to make some decisions is looking at this. So I think we could see a shift in Medicare where Medicare is more willing to pay for things to prevent disease than they are willing to wait for you to get sick before it pays. Right? I mean, that's really, if you just look at it from a logical level, that's really what it is. Health insurance right now says, once you're sick, then we'll help you. Instead of saying, well, we're going to make sure you're not getting sick. Like we're going to pay for you to do good, healthy things. And then if you're going to be lazy and make bad health choices, now there's a high deductible. But if you're going to make good health choices, like going to the gym, like I think insurance should pay for gym memberships and it should pay for at least one personal training session a month. If it did that and people actually utilized it, do you have any idea how many chronic healthcare crises would go away? Like I would rather have a gym on every corner than a pharmacy. Like, I just think, if we're being honest and we're looking at health, why aren't we making these decisions? Why is it that it's more expensive to go to an acupuncturist, massage therapist, and a chiro than it is to go to urgent care? Why is the biggest thing they're looking at is that there's no copay for your drugs? Because that's the culture that we've built around healthcare. And that's where I think we'll start seeing what you're talking about, where you have a chiropractor. And one of the areas we wanted in the birthing area. I think there needs to be a chiropractor on every birthing floor. And we need to really train, like the lie that once you've had cesarean, you have to have cesarean after that. That's not true. You can have a vaginal birth after a cesarean birth. Like there's so many myths that have been built into the healthcare or the delivery model because of reimbursement, because of hospital stays, because of the financial side, that when you get to the truth of it, man, how amazing would it be to have a birthing center where it was really about the health of the mom first and then creating a very safe and healthy delivery and then the health of the child. Right. I mean, that's the way it should be. And then the deliveries are going to have far less mortality issues. We're the worst in the world in mortality with births. in the United States statistically. So these are the things that I dream like you do, that it'd be amazing if we had integrated, truly integrated centers to be able to perpetuate health and wellness rather than perpetuate sickness. And then economically, there's more money in health because that applies to everybody. Absolutely everybody's now a candidate. So if the insurance companies would get smart and build plan designs around health and paying for the things that keep you healthy instead of these catastrophic injuries that we're creating, then they're going to be just as profitable, if not more, because now everybody's a candidate, not just the people that have been in that illness cycle. So that's the world I live in. That's the vision I have that God's given me, that we're working to try to do things like this, just have conversations, maybe challenge someone's understanding of reality, and put us to the test, man. Put me to the test. If you go to a chiropractor and you go, and if you want to help find one, you can email me. I'll do some look and tell you who's someone that's got the right background. I'll put you to the test and go for a little bit of time. And I guarantee you're going to find that things in your life are all of a sudden just a little better, a little different, and things are operating better, whether it's symptomatology or just your ability to function in the stressful world that we live in. And that's all I want for people. I want them happy and healthy.
Love it. So how does someone get started looking for a chiropractor? Or maybe they've gone in the past and they've gone
Yep.
to quite a few different ones. And I know I'll hear things like, well, this guy's good with the shoulders. This guy's good with the neck.
Yeah.
This guy's good with the back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you're running around. How do we find somebody?
So whenever I look, when someone asks me, hey, I need a chiro in South Florida. So when I Google, the first thing I do is I go to the About Us page and I look where they went to school. Unlike medical schools, our schools are very different. We have a spectrum. We have a few schools where they're very medically minded. And so they're really just teaching the diagnosing and they're teaching the management of illness. And then we have other schools that we call philosophical, where they're teaching what I've just shared with you today, the understanding and the power of the adjustment, and that, the neurology and all of that stuff. So I look where they went to school and I look how they talk about chiropractic. If in their About Us page, they're talking about family, wellness, health, then that's a great office. You're going to someone that's going to explain very similar to what I just did. If they're talking in there About Us of chiropractic helped me and I really want to, make it available, and we have all the latest equipment and we do all the diagnostic testing, we accept all insurances, then you're probably going to get someone that's a little bit more what we call mechanistic, which means they're going to find a bump and pound it down. Like, they're not going to really talk to you about health management in your life. They're just going to adjust you and try to make sure that they help you feel better, which that has its merit. I'm not knocking those individuals, but what I'm talking about is someone that's going to sit down. Every time we sit down with a new patient, we realize whatever it was that brought you in here, but what do you want out of life? Like, I want you swing dancing when you're 90. Like, that's what I want for you. But what do you want for you? And we find out if we're the right office for them. Some people don't want that. Some people just want, get me out of pain and leave me alone. Awesome. I got another chiro down the street that's awesome. You're going to be annoyed with us, so I'm going to send you over there. He takes your insurance, and you guys will just get along perfectly. But you need to be adjusted, but that's probably going to be a better place for you. But if there's someone that's like, I am sick and tired of being run through the mill and no one knowing what's wrong with me and why I can't ever get a foot ahead, why every time I do one thing, I just take a step back, nothing seems to work, and I'm just exhausted. Those are our perfect patients. We're like, great, because you're in the right place. Because we're going to work with you and we're going to figure out what it is that's going on in that brain of yours that's creating all of this chronicity that you never feel like you got a leg ahead. And that's why if you went to our website is patriotchiro.com. That's our clinic. Just go to our Google reviews and you can tell from the reviews of the people. We have almost 200 reviews on there. And you'll hear that. I'd never been to a place that explained it so well. I'd never been to a place that showed me really the decisions I was making at home and how that affected my health. And so I love it. Like, I love our office. I love our team because we're so committed to making sure people are empowered for empowering themselves to make good healthcare decisions for them and their family. And when we have families come in, and it's all 6 of them, like, they're just coming in. The kids, we have these baby activators, these little clicker things. So we get pictures from moms all the time at home. The kids are adjusting everyone. And to me, that's heaven. That's where people understand how the body operates. They're choosing to do it rather than the shortcut through medication. And those kids are going to grow up so enlightened and so empowered because they've been under care for such a period of time. So you want to look at what the chiro is about, where they went to school, and how they're talking about chiropractic? Does our website talk about health and wellness and empowerment, or does our website talk about symptoms and pain relief? And that's going to kind of tell you the type of doctor that you're with. Not that they're bad, but if what I've been saying today resonates with you, then you're going to want someone that's really talking about health and wellness and really prevention and making decisions for you and your whole family. And then you're going to get that kind of stuff. It's pretty amazing.
This is interesting. I'm going to actually start Googling and looking at the About page.
Good.
And because you're right, some are more mechanistic, and
Yep.
some have that more holistic education, because you're really
Yep.
educating people and giving them the knowledge to make informed decisions for themselves. So that's really interesting. Bharon, as we start to wrap up, I want to be respectful of your time. Was there something that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask that you think the listeners should know? And then how can they learn more about you and follow your work?
Yeah. I'll do the easy part first. My website is OneChiropractic.org. If I've said something, or I will talk to anybody on any level. I am so passionate about this. It's my favorite topic on the planet. So next to the gospel, it's the most life-changing thing that I've ever encountered. So you can go to the contact us. That comes right directly to me. It'll tell you about the projects that we're working on, the things that we're doing, like our Operation Backbone, which is our military project. We have Health Missions, which is we do mission work in parts of the world where chiropractic's not developed. And we go there, we introduce chiropractic, and then we work with the governments to institute and create a culture and put it in schools and all that kind of stuff so that we can grow chiropractic in other parts of the world. And then obviously our defense side, which is a Chiropractic Defense Council, where we are defending the rights of practicing chiropractors, as we talked about earlier. So all that stuff's on my website, onechiropractic.org. And then hit the contact us, and I'm happy to walk you through how to find a good chiropractor, all of that kind of stuff. I would love to. It really is a passion of mine. No, I think we covered a lot. The only thing I want to leave with people, and I don't want to get all oogie googie and Bible-y here, but I just want you to know that we were never, ever created to deal with the stuff that we're dealing with. You should, if you're in a place where you just don't have hope, you're trying, but every time you turn around, you just don't know where to go. I want to let you know that you're loved, that there is hope for you. The first step is you making that choice in yourself to say, I'm not giving up, because that's what the enemy loves more than anything, is for you to feel helpless and alone. I'm telling you right now, you are not alone. You are not alone. You can go to my website. I will respond to you. You are not alone. I'm not guarantee I can help with everything that may be going on in your life, but I will definitely make sure that you get some help and support in the direction you need. So that's your first step. Secondly, your body was intended to adapt and heal and restore. It is not intended to break down as you get older. That is a fallacy and a lie. That's common, but it is not true. Just because you're turning 50 or 60 or 70 doesn't mean you're supposed to be having aches, pains, and cracks. Your body was built to restore and renew. And we want you to find that. There's lifestyle choices with diet and exercise that help, but we also want to make sure that we're stimulating that brain. Whatever your preconceived idea of chiropractic may have been prior to listening to this, I'm asking you to please do it for yourself. If you're in that state of feeling like I'm just broken, there's nothing that can be done for me, give us a shot. I promise you, give us a shot. We love converting people to believing that there's no hope to now believing that anything's possible. That is what we do. We are hope dealers, man. We love giving people hope. It doesn't matter how chronic, it doesn't matter what doctors told you this is as good as it's going to get. Just please, if you feel hopeless and you don't feel in control of your health, give chiropractic a shot, because I bet you we can get you to a much better place than where you're at if you give it a chance. So yeah, that's how I want to leave it.
So good. I love the faith focus. I just started a membership called Faith Plus Fitness.
Oh, good
just
for
really
you.
Based on that, to me, because to me it's holistic. Your body, your mind, your soul, all of the things. You can't take them. You can't put them in little compartments.
Nope.
In a vacuum.
That's
Everything
exactly
works together. So I really love that. Bharon, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a delightful conversation. I know the listeners and people watching are going to glean so much from this. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless everybody there.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.